right, Tom Pohl, tell us about your hack of the week.
So in this week's episode, we are on an internal penetration test. It was myself and one of my coworkers. And we initially, we gained access to an uninterruptible power supply, or UPS, battery backup on a network. And we got access to a management interface of the battery backup using, unfortunately, default credentials. Now this UPS was set up to send message alerts to text messages, but via email. So they were actually, it was configured to send email messages to email addresses, and then um, those emails would get texted to the user. So when there's an alert or an event that needed to be handled, it would be handled by the admins. So what we did is in that interface, we went ahead and changed the server. Instead of talking to Office 365, we decided let's have it send those email messages to us. So we set up a listener and those email addresses, and then we triggered a test alert. So that basically from the UPS, we hit the test button. It sent us a test email, which first thing it did was it tried to log in with those Office 365 credentials. And because this was a hybrid environment between Office 365 and our on-premise Active Directory, those credentials worked in their on-premise Active Directory. And so armed with these credentials, we decided, let's go see what we can do. And we discovered that they had Active Directory certificate services, and they had a configuration or misconfiguration where we could relay credentials into the Active Directory certificate services from another machine. And so we decided, and we also discovered another vulnerability is with these credentials, we figured out that they were vulnerable to an authenticated pettypotum attack. So we could talk to a domain controller and convince a domain controller to do an NTLM V2 handshake with us. And so armed with all these pieces, we were able to convince the domain controller to do an NTLM V2 handshake with us that we relayed over to the Active Directory certificate services, which then gave us a valid certificate for the domain controller. And with that valid certificate, you know what we could do, Sharky? We could then impersonate that domain controller. So then we went and talked to another domain controller, said, hey, domain controller, we're totally this other domain controller over there. You want to do what's called a DC sync and synchronize all your passwords with us? And the domain controller is like, yeah, you totally look legit. Let's do that. And so it sent us all the password hashes for all their users, including enterprise admins as well as domain admins. And so in retrospect, what could they have done better? They should have patched for the authenticated pettypotum issue, as well as configured their Active Directory certificate services so the web interface couldn't be used to relay, to issue certificates to it.
Thanks, Tom Pohl, and thanks, Sharky.